Never let them in. No matter how much they plead with you, no matter how innocent they may look, never trust those pure black eyes. These are terrifying encounters with black-eyed demons.
It is said that a demon's eye color signifies its order in the mythological hierarchy of the demon society, with black-eyed demons being the most common and the weakest demons around, which, by the way, in no means stops them from being absolutely terrifying in every way, shape, and form imaginable. Anyways, it is said that the black-eyed demons are subservient to higher-ranking and stronger demons, and while they may appear small, they tend to travel in groups ranging from 5 to 100, so keep that in mind. These demons are also said to be incredibly strong, fast, and durable. You want to break their legs? It doesn't bother them. Maybe drive a stake through their heart. Better luck next time. Even automatic projectiles won't stop these guys, and that is because the demons are not really connected to the bodies they possess. They just control them as though draped in an oversized mascot costume. And of course, they are also known to possess telekinetic abilities, and they really enjoy tormenting the living. So if you see one, run. A particular subject of black-eyed demons are the black-eyed young ones, best known for their mischievous and malevolent nature. The black-eyed young ones are paranormal creatures said to inhabit the bodies of specifically young people, likely because 1, that's insanely terrifying, and 2, it's a lot easier to lure people in when you seem like nothing more than a lost young person wandering the road at night or begging on the street corner. But don't think staying inside of your car or never leaving the house will keep you from accidentally running into one of these young-looking demons. No, that would be too easy. In reality, these malevolent little trash creatures are known to be quite bold, approaching and knocking on car windows and doors, and even sometimes walking straight into homes and possibly your bedroom and other buildings despite receiving absolutely no invitation. Generally, you will know you have encountered a little demon before ever seeing their eyes, as they are often said to be accompanied by an almost crippling sense of both fear and dread. So if you're feeling fearful and dreadful right now, look around.
Stories of youngsters with pure black eyes, like the ones Hannah just mentioned, have been told around campfires for decades, but the first written stories may have come about in 1996 from a Texas reporter named Brian Bethel. Bethel had a terrifying encounter in 1996, and the story of this encounter ended up on a message board. The story quickly spread to other early internet forums, and today many view it as a sort of proto-creepypasta, but to this day, Bethel insists that he wasn't making any of it up. He'd been sitting in his car in a parking lot outside a movie theater one night in Abilene, Texas. He was dropping off a check and was using a street light in the parking lot to write it. Just as he was getting ready to drive off though, he suddenly heard a knock on his window. He looked up to see a pair of young boys staring down at him. Through the window he could hear their muffled voices pleading with him to give them a ride. But there was something off. Why were these two boys out alone so late at night? More importantly, why were their eyes pure black? No sclera, no irises, just deep black orbs. Bethel immediately felt this oppressive sense of doom in the pit of his stomach. Without thinking twice, he put his foot on the gas and roared out of the parking lot. He knew something was very, very wrong. He shared his story in private emails to 2 coworkers, but eventually it ended up in the local paper and then the internet. Bethel expected everyone to think he was crazy, and some did, but others began sharing their own stories. Aside from the Brian Bethel account, the next most well-known black eyes encounter came from a Reddit post 13 years back with the heading, "Warning to people in Portland, Oregon metro area this Halloween." The Redditor said that his neighbor, who was known for his elaborate Halloween decorations, hadn't put out his usual display. And the neighbor ended up telling him that he planned to keep his house dark this Halloween because of a frightening experience he'd had the year before. The neighbor said that after his brother's family had left, he received a late night visit from 2 teenagers who weren't in costumes, but they did have unusually large irises and dilated pupils. They asked to use his phone, claiming they were lost. The neighbor immediately felt off. Something just didn't seem right about these 2. He thought they might have been on something or were going to try and rob him, so he sent them away and locked the door. Then he stayed up all night, just terrified that they might try to break in. The Redditor listened to what his neighbor said and was immediately reminded of the urban legends of the black-eyed entities. So he mentioned the legend to the neighbor, who had never heard of them before. And later, the neighbor returned to the Redditor's house visibly disturbed, saying he found the similarities pretty striking. He'd obviously gone online to read about it himself.
This next story comes from Reddit user WonderWcman. I think they probably spelled woman wrong or it was taken. Anyways, it goes as follows. What happened was one night I was in bed and something woke me up, but I wasn't sure what it was. I just knew something forced me to wake up. So at that point I rolled over and looked around my room and it's bathed in this blue light. There was a window in my room, but there's nothing that would cause it to light up blue like that. It was bright enough though that I could make out the details of objects in my room. And on my floor was someone or something crouched down, and it looked like they were maybe playing with a toy. It was hard to tell because their back was to me, but there was definitely a young human crouching there. Thinking it was my stepbrother who came into my room to play with a toy that he had left in there or something, I asked if it was him. I don't remember much after that, but I do remember this thing turned around, still in the crouch position, and when it looked at me, all I saw were completely black eyes and pale white skin. I remember pulling the blankets up over my head because it terrified me so bad, but that's all I remember. I never had an experience like that again, but the house I grew up in was super haunted and my entire family had so many experiences that we've tried to explain, but never could. I don't know about you guys, but in that situation I probably would have given that small little demon a big old roundhouse kick and then run out of the room rather than just throwing a blanket over my head and hoping for the best, but you know, to each their own, I guess.
Apparently there are a good number of black-eyed sightings in Cannock Chase in Staffordshire, England, for some reason. Just in 2022, a story came out in the Staffordshire News about a young couple who had a traumatizing encounter while camping. It was around midnight when they started to hear what sounded like a young girl giggling outside their tent. They unzipped it and turned on their flashlights to see what the hell was going on, and spotted a small girl running from tree to tree, hiding behind them and intermittently poking her head out to peer at them. Then she, or it, walked out into a clearing right in front of them and just stared, continuing to giggle. Her eyes were nothing but black. The girlfriend claimed that it, quote, moved in ways humans simply can't move. It was like it could teleport from one place to another when it was moving around and hiding behind the trees, end quote. Then the thing bent down, adjusted its shoe, and skipped down a path leading deeper into the woods. The couple just huddled in their tent, terrified, waiting for the sun to rise.
This next story comes from Reddit user BailyDianne. It goes like this. I was working in an office that did mainly business-to-business sales. Since we weren't in a great part of town and we weren't exactly open to the public, I kept the door to our office locked. The only way to work the lock was with a key from either side. I had stepped outside to go on a sales call, but before I did, I looked out the window and there were two young boys walking about a block away from me. No big deal. I could easily be safely to my car before they reached where I was, but before I knew it, the young men were much closer than they should have been. It was like they had walked a city block in a split second. My fight or flight kicked in. I had no reason to be afraid, but I felt a deep fear. So I went back inside and locked the door. I'm not even sure how to describe the fear I felt that led me to rush back inside though. All of a sudden, these young men started banging on the door. Only one of the two of them spoke. He said, "We need a phone, let us in." I yelled no through the door, but he kept banging on the glass so hard that it was vibrating. I threatened to call the cops, but they kept banging and begging to use the phone. So finally I got brave enough to get a better look at them so I could give a description to the police, and their eyes were pitch black. I'm not super religious, but in the moment, for some reason, I just yelled, "In the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to leave," and they disappeared. Just vanished. End of story. That sounds terrifying. I mean, as if young people weren't already intimidating enough. You go ahead and throw some demon in there and you've got enough nightmare fuel to last you all year.
From Reddit user Baby Milk Cow comes the story of the demon in the closet. Not my story, but my dad's. He grew up with a single mom and 4 other siblings in southeast Texas on the border of Louisiana. He says he and his brother were sleeping on the couch in their living room, and they both woke up to a black-eyed youngster standing in the doorway of their closet. He said the thing looked older than them by a little, had black eyes and orange hair, and had a slight glow to him, like he was under his own spotlight. He said he and his brother tried to scream, but nothing would come out. The thing just disappeared after that. The reason everyone knows this is true? Well, a couple months ago, me, my mom, and my dad were at my grandma's house, and my uncle was watching a documentary on black-eyed demons. When my dad brought up what had happened to them all those years ago, my uncle started tearing up and just kept repeating, "Man, you seen that too? I thought it was crazy. I can't believe you seen him too." My uncle has a history with illicit substances and mental health problems, and for over 50 years he assumed what he saw was fake and just his mind playing tricks on him. It's sad because we think that this situation shook him up so badly he started using as a teen to cope with the thought that he may have been crazy. They were so scared they just never brought it up ever again after that, but my dad always told my mom that story ever since they started dating. My grandma, who was sitting there listening to them talk about what happened, just said, "Oh, there was something in that house, Lord."
This next story comes from Reddit user LogDog1201. When I was about 16, I had started developing a sleep paralysis phenomenon. It happened every other night or so. Most times when I woke up in an episode, it didn't feel right. Something felt odd every time. I could see my room and still hear my fan, but something felt like it was almost watching me. I thought it was normal paranoia, as most say you experience in sleep paralysis, but the fourth time I experienced it, there was a young person-looking figure sitting at the edge of my bed. It turned towards me and just stared with its pitch black eyes. I was freaking out a lot, and it's worse because you can't scream or move, just watch. The young creature then stood up, got off my bed, and walked right through my wall towards my sister's room. I fell asleep shortly after that, but I brought this encounter up to my sister a year later or so, only for her to say that she saw a young person with no eyes in front of her closet doorway, just staring at her. End of story. I have to say, if my sibling told me they saw a literal demon crawl through their wall and into my room and all they did was go to sleep, I would be livid. They would literally never hear the end of it, ever. Luckily everyone's okay, but still, I'd be pissed.
This final tale is one I'm going to call the apple. It's been floating around the internet for years now, and it has this perfect urban legend type of charm about it. So a woman in Texas is puttering around the house when she hears her doorbell ring. She answers the door and finds two youngsters standing on her doorstep. One is holding an apple. She's immediately taken aback by the fact that, yes, they both have pure black eyes. They ask the woman if she can let them in. Now, this is already very odd, but even stranger, she's out in a very rural area, basically in the middle of nowhere. Just where exactly did these two come from? Then this deep sense of dread starts to fill the air when one of the black-eyed visitors asks the woman, "Can I at least have some ketchup for my apple?" The woman declines and shuts the door, immediately locking it. That's like something an alien would ask. They have an apple, they know that ketchup is a thing, so they combine the two in a weird way. That's kind of what stuck out to me about that story. I'd be weirded out too.
I'm just scared right now. The whole thing freaks me out, you guys.
With all that said, we'll catch you next time.